I'm not sure how many people here are familiar with Bell, California, and what's been going on there. Last month, 8 officials from Bell, California, including the town's mayor, were arrested, sending shockwaves all over the world. Right now, they're charged with misusing $5.5 million in public funds. But a state audit suggests they may have stolen as much as $50 million. In addition to receiving mind-boggling salaries, it's believed the city also levied illegal taxes against its own citizens. Quote, our audit found the city had almost no accounting controls, no checks, no balances, and the general fund was run like the petty cash drawer, State Controller John Chang said in a statement. Former city manager Robert Rizzo, charged with 53 counts of misappropriation of public funds and conflict of interest. Rizzo is infamous, and he became infamous when it was revealed he was being paid $800,000 a year. There might be more students on this campus than people in Bell, California. It was a shameful situation, and it's a cautionary tale for a lot of things. Unbridled greed, arrogant government, an ignorant populace, and the importance of transparency. But the thing for me is, you don't get to a situation that can become as egregious as that if there wasn't a legacy of despair in that town. If there wasn't an atmosphere of low expectations. This is the epitome of mediocrity, because once a person or a society is willing to underachieve or accept underachievement, it's on a path to ruin. There were special circumstances that allowed the scum to run this city and push the envelope of greed beyond even the point a normal criminal would consider. The people of Bell, only 35% of the city has high school diplomas, 4% had bachelor's degree, and only 1% went to grad school. In Bell, California, where the guy made $800,000, poverty is overwhelming. 24% of the population lives below the line versus 14% for the state. The city's population is 90% Hispanic, 5% white, 1% Asian. Of the 38,000 people who live in Bell, 19,000, more than half, in fact, are foreign-born. That's 53%, versus 26% average for California, and 12% for the entire United States. Household income in Bell, California, $39,000 a year versus $61,000 for the state of California. Per capita income, $13,000. These are very poor people. So how did they start to lose hope? Some of this we can trace all the way back to 1965. Bell, California, if you look on a map or if you're from there, you know that is situated near a lot of other smaller towns: Maywood, East Los Angeles, Commerce, Cuddy, Bell Gardens, Pico Rivera, Linwood, Compton, and Watts. In 1965, Watts went up in flames. 6 days of rioting saw 977 buildings burned, damaged, looted, or simply destroyed. 34 people were killed in the days after. Neighborhood residents claimed police brutality and an unfair arrest of a black motorist and his mother and brother started it all. 1,000 people were injured. 3,438 people were arrested. Now, this neighborhood was already marked by poverty and plight, but there was steady progress, there was steady work there. All of that changed. All of the businesses and buildings that were attacked were white-owned. It triggered what's known as white flight. All the businesses left Watts and the surrounding towns. And these just weren't ma-pa businesses. In Watts you had Bethlehem Steel, U.S. Steel, Alcoa. In Commerce there was Chrysler, Uniroyal Tire, and Southgate General Motors, and Pico Ford, and Maywood Goodyear Tire. In fact, the Goodyear blimp used to be housed in South Central Los Angeles, the home of Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. All the businesses left there, and that's when despair set in, and it became a vice grip on the people that lived there. Now the entire neighborhood has become synonymous with crime and despair, even to this day. The people have lost all hope to the point where welfare checks and small-time hustles have been enough to keep them trapped. How did the city itself become so corrupt? Well, that to me wasn't an accident either. Corruption in that town was almost as old as the town itself. In fact, Bell was incorporated in 1927, In 1937, Bugsy Siegel was sent to California to develop the gambling rackets in Los Angeles by East Coast mobsters. They sent his lieutenant to follow him, a guy named Mickey Cohen. Now, Bugsy came out. Meyer Lansky didn't trust him, so Mickey Cohen was watching him. Cohen was also instrumental in the development of the Flamingo Hotel and all of the gambling here, well, not here, but on the West Coast. Meyer rose high in organized crime. He was finally brought to justice in 1950. He had to serve 3 years for tax evasion, and then again in 1961 when he was sent to Alcatraz. He died in 1976, and the executor of his estate was a guy named Pete Worley. He also was his godson. Now, Pete is interesting because Pete was also mayor of Bell, California. That was in the early 1980s. He was also a member of the city council in 1984, where he helped to push the approval of gambling halls, including a 64-table hall that he happened to own 51% of. He didn't tell anybody that part, so when they found out, he was sentenced to 3 years in prison. He did less than one. The rest, he was on probation. But Worland, again, established the template for future behavior of Bell mayors. He attended sex parties with teenage prostitutes. In fact, he hung out one time with Angelo Bruno and Kenneth Bianchi, otherwise known as the Hillside Murderers. In 2006, a door in a house in Running Springs, San Bernardino County during a violent storm, so set off the alarm system. So when the police arrived, they were sort of dumbfounded at what they saw. The house had slot machines in it, even had a cashier's cage built into the wall. Who did the house belong to? Pete Worland. He admitted to the illegal slot machines and other things, and he actually only got probation. One of the more interesting items that stood out was a sign in the house that said, "No credit, please don't ask." So currently the LA DA is examining why the current mayor bought property from the Worland estate for $4.6 million, which was obviously too much. As far as the current mayor, Oscar Hernandez, well, they bought his house too, the town did, for an undisclosed amount. He's been arrested as well. So you say to yourself, okay, golly, this all sounds like Soprano type stuff. You know, people live in this town, it's a small town, they have to know just something's not right. This is just not, something is not right. You had to know something was wrong. In fact, the cost of living index in Bell was 161 versus an average of the country for 100. Also in Bell, they had one law officer per every 1,000 residents. In California, it averages 2.56. The bottom line is when people stop expecting great things, they accept their fate, and they become vulnerable. Now, I had a buddy who spent some time in Iraq early on, and one of his first observations was that Saddam Hussein had snatched so much of the fight out of these guys that it was so easy for any insurgents to come in there. That's why you had all these foreign fighters there. And that's why it's taken so long to train them. They had the fight snatched out of them. In Bell, unfortunately, the insurgents operated from within. The legacy of the Watts riots, the exodus of the business created a hole in the soul of the city. Now we have a place where people actually cheer a higher minimum wage, and government programs that are designed to distribute food and flimsy temporary jobs programs. It's an area where mediocrity is embedded to the point where someone like Robert Rizzo, if you ever see a picture of him, you'll want to throw up. The guy looks like he came out of central casting for the ultimate scum. At this point, we can only pray that the citizens of Bell get justice, but for me, the real justice goes beyond putting these crooks in jail. The real justice would be a change in the mindset that says we want more and we expect more. And we're going to do whatever it takes to climb out of this hole. It won't be easy, but it's not impossible. In the meantime, as the nation looks on Bell, I hope people understand that our country itself is gradually becoming a giant version of Bell, California.